All right, welcome to the second recreational fishing video, and in this one we're going to be talking about the impact of recreational fishing and whether it needs to be accounted for by fisheries managers. So let's have a look at a case study just with crayfish. In Area 2, the commercial quota, this is a couple of years ago, so this is 2011, I think was 60,000 kilos or 60 tons in Cray 2. That's everywhere from the East Cape to the north of the Hauraki Gulf. And so we like to blame the commercial fishermen for hammering the stocks, but in fact, if you look at crayfish Area 2, this wouldn't be the same for the West Coast or a lot of other areas, but crayfish 2, more recreational fish are caught by or more crayfish are caught by recreational fishers than commercial fishers, by more than twice. So the commercial fishers would say that the recreational fishing effort is what's doing the damage. So here's another case study. Blue cod in Area 8. Okay, 34 tons to commercial. And the recreational blue cod quota in the same area is 188 tons. So quite a lot more caught by recreational fishers than commercial fishers. Okay, so is the recreational fishing subject to the quota management system? We've learned all about the quota management system. There is an allowance made for it, but no, recreational fishing is not allocated by quota. The goal of the quota management system is to try to limit the amount of fish that are taken out. So if we're going to add recreational fishing and try to set a limit on how much is taken out, then, and we wanted to add it to the quota management system, then how would we go about doing that? We would give a share of the quota, just like we give quota to the commercial fishers, to the recreational sector. So you have to split the pie up like this. So here is the amount of fish that, say 30% or so, that will go to the recreational fishers. And over here is your commercial fishers catching their stuff by trawl, lots less boats, lots more boats and but smaller effort than the recreational sector. All right, so what you do is say, all right, you can have 20 tons this year of recreational catch, and once that quota is used up, then you've got to stop fishing. But what problems might that cause? Right off the bat, one of the problems is that who's to say what the fair share for the recreational sector is? Obviously, in Orange Roughy, the recreational sector is going to catch none, but I think that there are a lot of people who would say that the bag limit has gone down unfairly in the recreational fishery for quite a long time, and where customary would say that the recreational catch has gone up and is starting to cut into their catch. So both sectors will have their own opinion about what a fair share is for the recreational fisher. So what about growing populations? So if the bag limit is 9 per day or 7 per day of a certain fish, and then as the population grows, should we try to keep that bag limit the same so more people can go out? Even if more people start fishing, can they all catch the same bag limit, and we limit the amount being caught by commercial fishers to make up for that? Or do we allow the commercial fishers to keep their share and then continuously decrease the bag limit, and so that a recreational fisher gets less return for their day's effort? And one of the main problems is if you set a quota limit on, say, snapper, and the recreational fishers have to stop fishing for snapper when it's all been caught, then how do we know when it's all been caught? it's very, very difficult to keep track of the recreational catch, especially with all of the different ways that people access the fishery. So it's very difficult to know how much has been caught. Okay, so that leads to the question, what's more important, the commercial or the recreational catch? We've just talked about how commercial and recreational catch are essentially competing for a limited resource. There are two different sectors that both would like to increase their catch if they had their way. So the government and fisheries manager's role is to allocate that catch to those two sectors. So what is the role of the government? And it depends. There are two different ways to look at it. One is whether you are protecting the GDP and the money that's generated by commercial fisheries, which is, after all, an export industry that that sells our resource to overseas and brings foreign capital into the country. And the other way to look at it is, are we protecting the Kiwi way of life, where people can go out and spend some time on the water and expect to bring home a reasonable feed for their family? Which is more important? Well, that is something that has been wrangled with for a long time and will continue to be that. Okay, let's look at what the official responsibilities of the Ministry of Fishery are around allocating catch. So they have to ensure the sustainability of fisheries resources. That should be pretty obvious by this time in the course. What sustainability means, that it will have fisheries in 20, 50, 100 years. Okay, that they ensure that obligations to the Treaty of Waitangi are met. So according to the Treaty of Waitangi, there should be shared management of the fisheries, and Maori should be able to have input, and it should be a cooperative effort in allocating catch. And customary, of course, needs to be accounted for. Okay. Ensuring international obligations are met. And this optimal utilization, as we've probably talked about in class by this point, under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, means that, and you have to remember that this was written in the 80s, when at quite a bit of a different time, essentially before there was much consideration of marine protected areas and fishing refuges. But this, by law, means that you must fish your fisheries or else let somebody else fish them. That the food resource is valuable, and that you should use that resource. Now, as a country, you decide to use that resource as a tourism resource and not fish it, but you would have to make that case. Okay. Ensuring efficient resource use in the sector, so that means that there aren't wasted resources going into harvesting that fishery. That's a bit of a nebulous one, hard task for the Ministry of Fisheries. And ensuring the integrity of the management system. So this means that they have a system in which reporting can be done, and that the reporting takes into account the actual catch, and that there is a check and balance on what is being reported. Now, obviously, that's been thrown into serious contention with the recent reports on dumping. So how do we go about estimating the recreational catch? All right, so this we can spitball in class and try to come up with what you think, or you can stop the video right now and give it a go. These are the general, so now you're back. Here are the ways that we generally have done so in the past. You've got telephone and diary surveys, where you just call random people and try to get their, try to ask them questions about what they have caught when they've been fishing. Of course, you cannot legally call cell phone numbers and solicit, so that's a tough one now with the changing technology. Boat ramp surveys, some of you may have actually been subject to these, where you will be asked about your catch, and your catch may be measured when you come back. They'll send planes up to fly over the Hauraki Gulf and other places to count how many boats are out fishing. They use charter boat returns and catch histories, and then drop boxes for trip reports at the ramp. Now, none of this takes into account, of course, the con-tickies going from beaches, rock fishing, kayak fishing, people land-based fishing. So there are a lot of access points that aren't being taken into account by these. And we'll see what how this can be so difficult to actually estimate the recreational catch. So in 1999 and 2000, the summer of 99 to 2000, in Kauai 1, which is our area here that we're very familiar with. Where's my part? Here we go. There were 2 surveys done to estimate the recreational catch. The first one estimated 960 tons, and the second one estimated 2,195 tons. So the second one was more than double what the first one was. Which one was right? Well, no, we'll never know really, but it'll probably be somewhere in the middle. This is interesting from a management standpoint. 80% of all the recreational fishing effort happens here over the Snapper 1 area, from the East Cape to the tip of the North Island. So it's, as we've said, it's very, very difficult to estimate what the catch by recreational fishers is, and to take it into account as fisheries managers, and also to take into account the contention between the commercial fishers and the recreational fishers vying for a limited resource. And in other places around the world, recreational saltwater licenses have been proposed. So in terms of the benefits, right now, the commercial fishing organizations, companies, they have a reasonable amount of money, they're organized, they have access to lawyers just for their general business practice, and they are organized well enough to be able to lobby the government for and present their side of the argument. Okay, if you have a recreational fishing saltwater license, and the money spent on that saltwater license is used for advocacy for the recreational fishers, then that money can be used to counter the commercial side. Okay, you'll also get a little better knowledge of who's fishing and where, and often in the cases of places in other parts of the world where recreational saltwater licenses come into practice, our recreational saltwater licenses are the law, then recreational fishing rights are defined. You have a legal right to fish once you have that license. Here in New Zealand, there is actually no legal right to recreational fish. Okay, so it hasn't been put down in law that you do have a recreational fishing right. It's just bag limits have been set, but it is not legally entitled that anybody can recreationally fish. The problems is seen as paying for something that we already have for free. It's kind of like an added tax. For a lot of people, fishing is more of a sustenance activity, and really a main part of catching something to eat, and to add a cost to those people who really don't have very much disposable income might be a hardship. And then also, a lot of that money that would come from those recreational saltwater licenses, or maybe even have to be topped up, would have to go into enforcement. So people at the ramps checking to see if those who are fishing had licenses, like they do with trout fishing. So the next video, video 3, we will look at some of the local rules around fishing in Area 1 here in the Bay of Plenty.